You're listening to the Friends Talking Nerdy Podcast Network.
Friends Talking Nerdy. If your friends are nerdy and you are nerdy too, I want to talk to you. Friends Talking Nerdy.
Hey everybody, welcome to Friends Talking Nerdy. This is Tim the Nerd here, and joining me on the couch this time, we have the greatest legal mind of the Pacific Northwest, Professor Aubrey.
Absolutely, and so happy to be on the couch today.
Yes, recording in a different spot because we are doing a sequel episode to episode 188. Episode 188, if you all remember, was the episode where we did the watch-along for the main event that was Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant for the WWF Championship. This one right here is this happened 1 year later and was basically, it started the setup for WrestleMania 5. But this is where the Mega Powers will explode.
I am so excited about these Mega Powers. These are the wrestlers that you always grew up with, you know, and so there's a familiarity and connection. Even though I wasn't a wrestling fan, how could you not be aware of Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage?
Exactly. I mean, Randy Savage's image is still being used on the Savage-sized Slim Jim.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, I think they still even use his iconic snap into a Slim Jim. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, like I mentioned, we are going to be doing a watch-along here for the main event 2, and we are on the Peacock app right now. We have the Peacock Premium, so we will be watching this without commercials. If you happen to have the Peacock app with the commercial plan, you can follow along with us, but be prepared for there to be some jumps in between things because of the commercials and whatnot, but we are at the 1 second mark. Are you ready to begin?
I am totally ready. Let's do it.
All right, we're going to turn back the sands of time to February of 1989. We are at the 1 second mark, and in 3, 2, 1, we're going to hit play. All right, the music hits, and right now you have Vince McMahon doing one of his legendary over-the-top hyperbolic promos to hype up this particular match here.
Right. He's got Hulk Hogan there with Randy Savage with Miss Elizabeth. You know, that's the story. And they're giving you almost like, what happened last time?
Yeah, I mean, it's been said before, but, you know, pro wrestling is like is a soap opera for guys.
Yeah, exactly. And there's that great South Park episode about wrestling that really shows what this is all about, right? It's so overacted and so bizarre. I don't follow the stories very well.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I mean, some of the newer stories, like I don't watch every week like I used to anymore. I mean, I keep up, you know, thanks to the Peacock app with stuff like the pay-per-views, WrestleMania and stuff. And I will keep up on the results through the news and everything. But you have to have that emotional investment with the characters. And if you don't have that, it's easy to, you know, like you yourself, you said you've been to see pro wrestling live. I believe you saw an episode of SmackDown.
I believe so, yes.
The blue brand.
It might have been NXT. I can't remember.
NXT has only been to Portland once, and I was at that one.
You were there, and I was not. And so this was SmackDown.
Yes. But it's one thing to be in the crowd because, yeah, even non-wrestling fans, I think, when they're at a wrestling show, for the most part, they're not going to be grumpy. They're going to be going along with the whole vibe of the crowd, you know, cheering and booing and having a good time, right?
Totally. And when I went with my cousin because he's way into wrestling. And my sister, and we had such a great time. And I think we were inspired by the other people. It's just like when you go to a concert, if everybody's dancing, you dance. If everybody's standing there not moving, it's hard to be the one who's dancing. So same thing with the crowd, people be standing up, cheering, yelling boo. And we were sitting next to like a group of 6 little girls, and we just did whatever they did. Like, we liked the same people they liked, and we booed the same people they booed, and it was just super fun.
Yeah, it was in 2017 for a taping of Raw at the Moda Center. I was in the crowd, and there was like a kid that was like really upset at one of the wrestlers and was yelling at him, and that was fun to watch, even as an old jaded wrestling fan myself, because it's that type of passion that I had when I was originally watching this.
Right, exactly.
Now we have Jesse Ventura on the screen, dressed in a subtle attire.
The Mega Powers Twin Towers. So this is something that wouldn't fly. Of course, remember, this is 1989, a full 12 years before 9/11.
Indeed. There we go. Drinking game, folks. But yeah, folks, on the screen right now, we have the Big Boss Man. We have Akeem, the African Dream, and their manager, Slick, being interviewed by Mean Gene Okerlund. And another thing that wouldn't fly today is Akeem, the African Dream.
Or, what was the manager's name?
Slick.
Slick. Slick would not be a caricature in the way that Slick is right now. I don't even have to hear the sound to know that it's a caricature.
Yeah, it's not subtle. It's 2-dimensional. It's broad, and yeah, it was the types of characters that, unfortunately, even at this particular time, most African American professionals in the creative industry, that's what they had to play.
Yeah, it's really true and really sad that people, in order to get a job in entertainment, for centuries now, have had to play a caricature.
Yeah. Now, Akeem, the African Dream, is just bad in a lot of senses, but there is some context to it. Now, that context doesn't forgive the racial aspects to this at all, but, context is king. It's important to know the idea behind why a character was created, and Akeem was a goof on Dusty Rhodes.
How so?
A lot of the mannerisms that Akeem the African Dream did with the hand gestures and whatnot were kind of plays off of Dusty Rhodes and some of the things he said in his promos. Now, it was 2-dimensional compared to Dusty Rhodes. Dusty Rhodes just oozed charisma and was able to connect with both, white crowds and black crowds, especially, in the South, because he got his first hit it big in the South.
Interesting. I wonder what role wrestling has played in perhaps integrated audiences. Do you have any idea the history of that?
I do, and there's actually a story based out of Tennessee about that. There was, I forgot the guy's name, but there was a white performer that, made it a point that, hey, I'm not going to wrestle in places with a segregated crowd. And he ended up being a hero to a lot of the African American community in Tennessee. And I think a lot of times, I'm not going to say, wrestling promoters were all, the brightest people, all and all were on the side of right. But if one thing and one thing only, wrestling promoters, they love the money. And if they saw that there was money by, integrating African-American performers on their shows, they were going to do it. And if that meant, having integrated crowds, they were going to do it because that made them money.
That's awesome. I mean, it's interesting to think about those forces, the economic forces. And was that sort of social phenomenon, segregation, related to economics, right? Was there some feeling that segregated crowds would generate more money or was it really based on just nothing but bigotry?
I would have to guess nothing but bigotry, honestly. I mean, it's like you have people that were raised to believe a certain thing and they just didn't know any different. You know, that's not forgiving their actions in any way, shape, or form, folks. But it can be tough to break out of the mindset of, you know, what your culture was growing up.
But it's definitely possible. It's definitely possible. The other thing I'd say about that is, oh my gosh, what were we just talking about?
About segregation, but we're at a point now where we have Hulk Hogan and the Macho Man being interviewed by Mean Gene Okerlund.
Awesome.
And this promo right here, this is very interesting in a couple of ways. Now, first, I love this part right here because Hogan, in a moment here, is going to say he loves Miss Elizabeth. And then they're talking about tearing down the Twin Towers, too. There's that. But I love the look. He just said he loved Elizabeth, and then Savage just gave almost like a turn of the head. But it was little things like that Randy Savage did in the build-up to what we're going to see later that made everything make sense. And that's just the beauty of what these guys and gals can do in the ring.
Yeah, I mean, Miss Elizabeth is back there just smiling like a little church girl. And she's got this ridiculously feminine and infantile dress on. And her dudes are like the most aggressive of the wrestlers, right? And the most famous of the stark raving mad wrestlers.
Yeah.
In what reality would these people actually get together?
I mean, this is two-dimensional, folks. So it's you have to go by extremes here, and I think the idea behind her character of being the soft, timid, quiet person actually was a nice dichotomy between her and Randy Savage.
Well, that's definitely true. Like, and she really was Randy Savage's
wife.
Sort of the soft side of Randy Savage, right? That was the only time you saw a soft side to him, was when he was interacting with her.
That, and also when he was a bad guy but still had her as his manager, you felt sorry for her. It's like, why are you with this guy who treats you like that? Because he would commonly, use her as a human shield to keep his opponents from getting at him.
That seems wrong.
If it were real, yeah. I mean, we are talking about wrestling here.
Yeah, but isn't it sending the wrong kind of message?
It's not something I would want to see today. And obviously, you remember watching that Dark Side of the Ring episode about Savage and Miss Elizabeth. I mean, they didn't have the most healthy of relationships. And the storyline here, too, that they're setting up, where Savage ends up becoming insanely jealous, which was true to life in a lot of ways. Now, it did produce some great material along the way that, in my opinion, is a great visualization, I guess, of what a person can feel like when they're, like jealous and emotional and in anger and a rage. But that doesn't mean it's healthy,
No way is it healthy.
At all, yeah. But that's the beauty of what art can do. It can, a creative outlet, even something like professional wrestling, which is not subtle in any way, shape, or form, when done right, can allow you to have this type of conversation that we're having right now. I mean, because they were able to do this, and it's unfortunately they were not healthy in their own personal relationship. But the fact that it was used in the storyline shows that, the fact that we're talking about it now is it creates conversation.
Yeah, for sure. So what they were just showing was Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage consulting with Elizabeth as if she was, giving them the game plan, and then Hogan sort of pointing to her and doing a thumbs up. So the idea here is that she's really their manager and really knowledgeable about wrestling.
Well, it's funny though. Jesse Ventura, during this commentary at the moment that you're referring to, was like, "Why are they listening to her? She's never been in the ring before."
That's very funny.
And also, too, they did make it a point to kind of set up the fact that Slick being a guy, even though he's just a manager, still put them technically at a 3 to 2.5 advantage.
Gotcha. Now, this is a very important question that I have for you.
Yep.
Why are Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan dressed as ketchup and mustard?
Well, Hogan's colors were the red and yellow.
Ketchup and mustard. Why would you do that?
It's a simple design because, again, characters like this have to stand out they're in a Bradley Center Arena in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where the Milwaukee Bucks play. And I believe they can hold around 20,000 people in there. And this was the days, too, before they had, the big screens to where, they showed, the backstage storyline. So a lot of times, one of the reasons why they have to dress extravagantly or in weird ways with the different color combos like that is to stand out, so they can be the visual vocal point.
Gotcha. So, I do think the costuming is better in the old days because the costuming now just seems to be about who can show the most flesh or all the outfits look the same. They just are different in what their design is. It's almost like buildings that are built now. They're just all boxes, just decorated a different way. And that's how I feel about today's wrestlers. Whereas, we got this guy in a police outfit, ketchup and mustard. We'll see some extravagant costumes later, I'm sure.
Yeah, that is the Big Boss Man, who was actually somebody that was discovered by Dusty Rhodes.
Interesting.
Yeah, he was at this point in time was recently hired by the WWF. He had previously worked in Jim Crockett Promotions as Big Bubba Rogers.
Yeah, Big Bubba.
And Hogan loved working with guys like that. Because even though Hogan was 6'10" and over 300 pounds of muscle, he still loved working with guys that were bigger than him. Whether it be in the case of the Boss Man, just more heftier, or like a tall giant like Andre.
Right, and why did he like that?
David and Goliath. He liked the idea of being able to come back. Now that there's a weakness in that too, and the WWE learned that the hard way by sticking with Hogan as their number one guy for as long as they did. When you go by one formula over and over again for years and years and years, it will get old.
Right, but it's always that balance of when you're going to turn off the money spigot until the money spigot dries up of its own accord, and then you have no future. Like if Hulk Hogan came back and wrestled last year, he could have made so much money.
Yeah, he's not going to. He has severe back and knee problems, so the days of him in the ring are, thankfully over, and I say thankfully, for his health. He's still able to walk. He's not in a wheelchair or anything like that, but he's going to be in a lot of pain for the rest of his life. But that's why I say good. But yeah, we have some action in the ring here. Akeem is getting hammered by the Hulkster. Hogan, boom, punch to the face.
Now they're in a huggy hold. He's done some, Akeem has done something to Hogan here. The tables are turning.
All right. Now I got to ask, 1989, February of 89, what were you doing?
I was 15 years old. I'm pretty sure I was grounded. I was doing, a lot of music and a lot of dance type after school stuff. Failing algebra. Stuff like that.
Were you dating yet?
Oh, God, no. I didn't really date until my senior prom.
I didn't even get that.
Oh.
I'm not worried. I would have gone to a dance,
You would have been a totally different person had you wanted to go to a dance.
Yeah, I mean, I went to one in my freshman year, and it was just awkward as fuck. I did get one dance, but I think it was more of a sympathy thing than anything else. And it was that awkward. I had my hands on like the side, her sides, and her hands were like up on top of my shoulders, and it was just like no emotion whatsoever, and super awkward.
Yeah, like I remember going to middle school dances and it was all about just hanging out with my girlfriends. And there were just the, people who had boyfriends who were dancing. And never had a boyfriend in middle school. I certainly never had a boyfriend in high school. I stopped going to dances after 8th grade. I never went to a high school dance. I guess I did go to what was called the Y-Teens dance, which was a club that had a formal dance that my mom made me a dress for that was gorgeous. It was black and white, ruched bodice with a straight black skirt with a beautiful ruffle, like long white piece on top of it. I'm not describing it well, but it was gorgeous and it took her a lot of time and effort to make.
Well, thank you for that, Mama Baldwin. Was it anything like Miss Elizabeth's dress?
It was nothing at all like but other people's were with the big bow on the butt. I always hated that. I never wore that sort of high femme of the 80s and 90s.
Oh, Macho Man's in the ring. I think we may be getting close to a pivotal moment in professional wrestling history here.
I'm so excited.
Akeem with the overdramatic, oh no. Oh, and he couldn't fall back properly. But, yeah, we're coming up here now. Me and 80... Ooh!
That was slick.
Yes, that Macho Man just got hit in his back with a billy club by Slick. 1989, myself, I was 12 at this point, I think, and going on 13, and I was in 7th grade, and that was the start of some very awkward years.
Yeah, man, middle school, high school, like until you were a junior and senior, it was just awkward AF.
Yeah, I mean, I wish there was other ways that kids could learn social skills. Like in a lot of ways, I think having a large group of kids like that congregated gives people different ideas of what adulthood is going to be like, because most adults I've found have the same amount of friends that I have. You can count them on one hand,
Yeah, I mean, there are other people who have, dozens and dozens of friends. I think.
I guess you have to define what friends mean to them. Here we go. This is the moment the Macho Man's being tossed out of the ring, and oh no, Miss Elizabeth is down.
Oh my gosh, she's down, and she's like passed out, and he's passed out, and he's almost stepping on her face. And here comes Hulk Hogan to do the medical exams. No doctors or anything around. And he's like smelling her and trying to get dumbass out of the way so he can pick up Miss Elizabeth and carry her limply to the medical people.
I gotta save her, dude.
I'm gonna save Miss Elizabeth, man.
But Macho Man right here was great. I love this scene, this look right here. Like, what the hell are you doing? You don't touch Miss Elizabeth. You got lust in your eyes.
That's what's going on right now?
Yeah, and because up to this point, for like the past couple months before this, they had been teasing the idea that not everything was right between the Macho Man and Hulk Hogan, and this right here was the start of Macho Man really being expressive. Like when I pointed out to you earlier when they did that promo where Savage just gave a quick little look. A lot of those things people missed. I certainly missed it at the time. But it was...
oh, my God. I just have to comment on the limpness of Miss Elizabeth. Like, she is playing this so perfect. She is just super limp, and Hulk Hogan has just picked her up from the ground. He has been, kissing her shoulders and, like, doing all kinds of stuff that has nothing to do with getting her medical attention. He waited about 10 minutes to pick her up and take her back to where's the doctor is my question. And she could have had a broken neck or something. Anyway, the whole scene is just, it's so dramatic. And
as a kid, like, I didn't even take into account until years later that Macho Man kind of has a right to be pissed here, because you already commented on it that, there a lot of time has passed to this point, from when Miss Elizabeth first got hurt up to here, and we're going to have a commercial break. And commercial breaks in the 80s during prime time, you're looking at maybe 2.5 minutes of just him in the back, and then you have a deleted scene, of course, that's on YouTube that I can put in the show's group page. But yeah, we just have this long delay. And in a tag team match, if your partner is not at the ring, you can't tag in if you're hurt or you need a break.
so what is ridiculous also about this is that they just ran for about 5 minutes away from the ring to get to the medical station, which seems ridiculous to have the medical station so far away from the actual, people who are getting hurt.
Well, what's ultimately ridiculous to me is the fact that Hogan did catch up to the people on the stretcher pretty quickly. He could have put her on the stretcher and then went back out, but now we see Hulk Hogan, oh, please save her, Doc, save her, when he's only just checking her blood pressure right here, and then stating Randy didn't mean it. Of course he didn't mean it. He was thrown out by Akeem. Why would he intentionally do that?
I swear he didn't mean it. Oh, God, please. Hogan is freaking out, man.
Yeah, this episode in a lot of ways was kind of like the seed planted for what wrestling became today. Because like I mentioned, during this era, you didn't have like the big screens to where they could show the backstage happenings. So, the audience in the arena at this particular time, they've only seen the match.
So they saw Miss Elizabeth get carried away, and then Randy Savage is still playing the game, or still wrestling.
Yeah. So we're talking like over 5 minutes at this particular point. Now Miss Elizabeth is like, hey, please just get back out in the ring. What the hell are you doing here?
Right.
But yeah, this was kind of the downswing of WWE as well. But like I mentioned, this particular episode was in a lot of ways the creation of modern television-based wrestling, because in the past before this, you didn't have as much happening backstage because of the fact that the audience in the arena couldn't see it because of the screens. So you're not going to have a 10-minute segment to where nothing's happening in the arena with the crowds that they can't really get invested in. Whereas now, because they have the big screens, you can have them play all the backstage stuff that they want. But this was really one of the first times where they utilized that. Now Hogan is back in the ring. It's been over 5 minutes, dude, but I'm here. I'm your friend. I'm your best buddy, pal.
Right, and Savage is just getting really, getting his ass kicked.
Indeed, getting some punches in the face from the big boss man right now. Akeem is being tagged back in. They were a good tag team, the Twin Towers. I don't think they should have. I mean, they never did, but I would have disagreed if they had won like the WWF Tag Team Championships, because of the fact that other tag teams in that era were not built like these two guys, but they were, for storyline purposes, the fact that they were so big and tough like that, they seemed legitimately like tough people to beat.
Yeah. I mean, look how big they are.
And Hakeem just fell out of the ring.
Hakeem just fell out of the ring. That was hilarious.
Yeah, just whoop.
All right, and why is Randy Savage not immediately running over to Hulk Hogan to tag him? Right, he's going to stagger around and keep trying to wrestle this guy when Hogan is standing there totally fresh.
You're going to get it right now. This is the big moment coming up. Akeem's being thrown over, and now the Macho Man sees Hogan. Oh, yeah. You're my buddy? Huh? You're my pal? You want to get tagged in? Well, here you go. Boom.
Smack you.
And like, yeah, Tim at 46, I fully agree with Randy Savage. Like, if I were a tag team wrestler and my partner left for over 5 minutes, I'd be kind of pissed too.
Well, of course, but his wife was injured. Why did Randy Savage not the one that went to her and picked her up?
Well, they're setting up for what they're going to do later in the show. But what this was the start of was the road to WrestleMania 5, where the main event was the world champion Macho Man Randy Savage facing off against Hulk Hogan.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was a storyline that started at the previous year's WrestleMania, because at the end of the tournament to crown the new champion, because at the end of the first main event, if you listen back to episode 188 of Friends Talking Nerdy, you can listen to our thoughts on that. But when Andre surrendered the title to Ted DiBiase, the WWF president Jack Tunney ended up vacating the belt, and they had a tournament for the championship at WrestleMania 4, where Randy Savage was in the finals against Ted DiBiase, and Hogan ended up helping Randy win the title. That was actually the start of this particular storyline right here, where they were leading up to WrestleMania 5, where Hogan would get the title back.
Wow. There was that much forethought involved.
Yes, and when forethought is involved in wrestling and it's not booked on the fly or just changed at a moment's notice or something like that, it can be fun, because what they were able to do in some of the promos after this to set up that match at WrestleMania 5, they had bits to where, Randy Savage would play little video clips of like interviews they did, like the one where Hogan says, "I love Miss Elizabeth," and he would show edited clips of those videos. But again, like I mentioned, those promos that he did were great in terms of showing, how realistic it can be when you're emotional and you have that jealous attitude or whatever, that you tend to forget little things, that don't support your idea that the other person is bad.
Right. That's how some people view the world in sort of very black and white terms.
And Hulk Hogan just won the match because, yeah, he had to.
Right. He won the match after he's the hero, right? He saved Miss Elizabeth and he won the match.
Yeah, but now he's got to go defeat these guys. Oh, I love this part. They have the camera obscured, but there's a reason why. And they're Slick and Big Boss Man aren't reacting until now, because now they're handcuffed together.
Oh, shit.
All right, Hogan's finally going in the back. He's going after the Macho Man. But, yeah. What else? 1989, that was George H.W. Bush's first year as president.
George Herbert Walker Bush.
Do you remember that era at all?
I remember 1,000 Points of Light. I remember, being very upset that he won. I've been a Democrat my whole life. And the glory days for me were, of course, Jimmy Carter when I was a very small child. And then, a series of idiots, really until we got to Clinton, I believe.
I would still contend that Clinton was an idiot in a lot of ways, because a lot of the big things that happened during the Clinton years have come back to haunt us.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just saying he was smart. He didn't have a crystal ball, and he made some really stupid choices, particularly in hindsight, like putting 100,000 cops on the street, like tough on crime, criminal sentencing guidelines, those sorts of things. So I agree with you. Clinton did a bunch of things that were bad, but I just think he was smart. Whereas I don't think George Herbert Walker Bush was smart. Obviously, Gerald Ford was not very smart. I know he's from Grand Rapids and you protect him, but he fell down a lot or something.
Well, yeah.
I think I only know him through the caricature on Saturday Night Live.
There's more to him than that. I mean, he never really wanted the presidency, but fell into it by accident. And as president was, he kept the seat warm. I mean, there's only so much you can do with, like less than 2 years in office, right?
Right.
But,
So I've been distracted by what's going on the screen here, which is Hogan and Randy Savage fighting with each other while Miss Elizabeth clings to life, only barely falling back down on the cot in which she has been treated for whatever her problem is.
yeah, they are arguing right here. There's still a chance they can shake hands and give it a hug and hug it out. But those eyes lust for Elizabeth. Do you understand that? Get your hand out of my face, dude.
Right. You make me sick.
Yeah, and like I said here, I mean, like they didn't do too many scenes like this in the backstage areas. Here we go, hitting the head with the title, boom.
And no concern about Miss Elizabeth's safety. Like he basically just ran into the bed that she's lying in as he made his way across the room to beat up Hulk Hogan. And here she is walking around. Yay, she's saved.
Yeah, but look at how Savage react here. I'm going to splatter the both of you.
Yeah, now she's clinging to Hulk Hogan. It's just, okay, basically abuse, assault.
Yep, pretty much. Now, and we got someone coming in to save the day, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, to protect Hogan. And now we got backstage officials like Pat Patterson, the first openly gay wrestler in pro wrestling.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, it was at this point, because it's February of 89. I was at, yeah.
So Savage is just out of control, and he's like beating up everybody he sees.
Yeah. Now, February of 89, I was just actually wrapping up 6th grade. 7th grade was, later in the year. But, we were going to have a graduation at the end of 6th grade. And, Randy Savage's theme song was the song that they use at graduations.
Oh, Pomp and Circumstance?
Yeah, I forgot the name. Thank you for saving me on that one. But I petitioned hard to try to get that song removed. I didn't want to get my 6th grade diploma with that music playing. Now, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking that was funny.
Yeah. All right, we got the next match coming up here, and wow, WWE was so culturally relevant back in the day, folks. It's the Mighty Hercules facing off against the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. And for folks that didn't watch wrestling at the time, I will tell you what the setup for this match was. Now, Hercules used to be a bad guy. His manager was Bobby the Brain Heenan. And there was an interview segment with Bobby, Hercules, and the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase at one point, where Ted DiBiase revealed that he purchased his own slave. And that slave was Hercules. But doing that ended up, Hercules was like, yeah, I'm nobody's slave, and instantly became a good guy at that point.
Wow. So he's taking off the chains that bind him.
Pretty much, yeah. And, now they're cutting to an interview with Hogan. But I don't think Hogan's going to talk just yet because he got hit in the head with the championship belt. Again, it's cool that they did this during this era because they didn't have the screens yet for the audience to really see it. This was specifically for the TV audience, but like I said, in a lot of ways, was the start of professional wrestling as we know it today.
Right, I get it, yeah.
But the $1 Million Man coming down to the ring with his bodyguard Virgil. There's another poke at Dusty Rhodes there because Dusty Rhodes' real name is Virgil Runnels.
Oh, funny.
But yeah, he's going to fight the guy that he tried to purchase as his own personal slave. And on the one hand, wrestlers in DiBiase's position as bad guys, wrestling fans at that point knew that at the end of the day, the bad guy was going to end up losing, but there was still the whole idea of DiBiase buying a slave was just lazy lazy creative at the end of the day. I mean, there could have been any other way that, DiBiase got on the wrong side of Hercules to turn Hercules into a good guy. It was just not needed.
Yeah.
What
It was weird. That's really weird.
Exactly, especially when you have such a problematic character like DiBiase anyway. I mean, with the black manservant that, he pays, and like they had scenes when the $1 Million Man first debuted where Virgil was like massaging his feet and getting the gunk out of his toes.
Oh, that's gross.
Yeah, things you do for money, I guess. But DiBiase in real life has turned out to be a horrible human being.
Right? He murdered people.
No. DiBiase did not murder anybody, but
What'd he do?
Well, are you familiar with the scandal in Mississippi, to where millions of dollars that were earmarked for public assistance went into the pockets of people like Ted DiBiase and former NFL quarterback Brett Favre?
Wow, no, I don't remember hearing about that.
Yeah. I mean, typical red state stuff. I mean, and this is another thing we can thank Clinton for, because with the laws that they put into place for public assistance in the 90s, it basically turned it into block grants that were sent to states, and the states could choose what they do with it. And in this particular case, like with Brett Favre, for instance, some of the money was used to build a volleyball volleyball arena at his daughter's college. Because, that's going to help poor and needy people, right?
Right. I mean, it depends on the college,
Yeah, the public assistance benefits should not have gone to that. And it makes me mad, too, because the same people that will get involved with, illegal stuff like that are going to be the ones that will vote for politicians to cut back on, on social programs because they cost the government money.
or make them punitive, right? Like you need money, and so you have to drive all around town. Or you need money, so you have to, suffer in some way. Like you have to give something up or you have to suffer. Just like, in order to get benefits that can not even sustain your family, you have to be so poor and you can only work certain number of hours at a certain rate of pay and to keep your benefits. But actually at that level, there's no way you could support yourself.
And it's a crime, in my opinion, that, most people, unless you're talking about, like the disabled or elderly, have a 4-year limit. If you hit that 4-year mark and you're still in trouble, then you're fucked. And people don't think about the economic consequences of what happens to people in that position, because it not only negatively affects the person in question economically, it does affect the rest of society. Because if they're, out homeless and resort to doing crimes to, get money or whatever, that negatively affects society. If they get arrested and have to spend time in jail, that affects us too, because, we have to pay into the prison system to make sure everything's maintained there. So, and
let's not even start talking about the prison industrial complex. It is all very complicated, but you have to follow the money.
And that's, what it's about. Money at the end of the day. And, anytime you have a politician that wants to go against any sort of social programs like that, I instantly, tend to shut them out. But, it's a complicated question, a complicated issue. And, I do think that in some ways, some concerns about people abusing the system are well-founded. And I think that, there should be things in place to make sure people are not abusing the system. But you can't, life will kick you in the nuts multiple times. And having a safety net of some sort not only helps the person in question or the family in question now, it does help the rest of society.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree totally.
Yeah.
But so we still don't know what's wrong with Miss Elizabeth. We got some other people, the $1 Million Man and Hercules here taking turns trying to smack each other's faces into the buckle of the rope.
Yeah, the turnbuckles, have padding in there. So in reality, nothing, nobody's really getting hurt there. But they do like to imply that, that the turnbuckles, do cover up, actual like steel hook that, connects the ropes all together. So, that's, when they do that, that's what they're implying, that, they're legitimately getting hurt, but they're not.
Right.
Oh, Hercules with a big comeback. What are we going to do here? And
It's a running thing, and oh my god.
dope. Now, Hercules, one with the name Hercules, I don't know if he would work well today. And two, just personality-wise, like, for what the WWF asked of its performers, I don't think he was ever going to get past the particular role that he had here. He didn't have that much charisma when he spoke.
Yeah.
I mean, unlike a Ted DiBiase, I mean, as we've mentioned, DiBiase is a bit of a scumbag. But chains right in the head. Oh my goodness. Down he goes, 1, 2, and
He pops out.
still kicks out. Charisma in wrestling, I think, is important because, the wrestlers with the best charisma are the ones that can connect with the audience the best. And, like me, if I were athletic and a professional wrestler, I still don't think I would connect because I don't, have that type of charisma you need to succeed.
Well, now let me ask you a question. Why did the match between Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage not come later in the main event?
The reason being, $1 Million Man cheated to win. But the reason being, they followed the same idea that they did for their Saturday night show, Saturday night's main event. What that show was, like every quarter, it would replace an episode of Saturday Night Live. And what they would do is front load that show because, similar to Saturday Night Live, yeah, I mean, let's use Saturday Night Live as an example. On Saturday Night Live, the funniest sketches are usually at the start of the show.
Yep.
And then the closer to when the show ends at the 90-minute mark is when they have the more experimental stuff that they don't know will it work or not. So the reason they did have this to where the Hogan match was first was, following that idea of, it's only 1 hour, people are here to tune in, they want to see this, let's give it to them.
Gotcha.
But people that did turn away ended up missing this little segment here. Mean Gene Okerlund is finally getting his interview with Hulk Hogan, and Hogan is just, oh God, oh God.
Oh God, my head. Oh, my head hurts.
Have you ever had one of those days?
He's so, Hogan really is one of the best, I think, at this pantomime storytelling.
Yeah, he understood what it took for a wrestler to be able to connect with the audience, whether he was a good guy or a bad guy. And he understood too. I mean, because a lot of his, not only facial expressions, but his body movement, when he's in the ring especially, is going to be a lot more exaggerated because his idea is he wants the person in the back row to still be able to know it's him. And, you have to be that type of hyperbolic in a way, I guess, in your performance in terms of being overdramatic. Because, this is not Shakespeare. They're not performing Macbeth. They're performing in front of a loud crowd.
What's interesting is I was just thinking of Shakespeare and sort of what we know about the original performances of Shakespeare's work was that it was more like wrestling than it is like current theater, in that it was way overacted. The crowds were participatory and loud, and there had to be a lot of, you had to project your movement to all of the people in the theater. So I was actually thinking about the connection between Shakespeare when you said it's not Shakespeare. Because, I think it's also got this sort of hubris to it, right? Like, these guys are so self-confident and unique. You know, we're looking right now at a guy who's got a bright green feather boa on.
The future governor of Minnesota.
Is that Jesse Ventura?
Jesse the Body Ventura, yep.
Oh my goodness, he's got a green feather boa on. That was amazing.
And Hogan on a rampage backstage. Again, this is not stuff they usually showed at this particular time to set up angles. Usually. And he's going to start beating people up now. He's pulling Jim Neidhart by his beard. Macho. There's Shawn Michaels, future Hall of Famer, getting thrown against the wall.
Very good reaction there. You could totally tell.
Bret the Hitman Hart. Oh, man. And at this point as a kid, I'm like totally behind Hogan. But, you know, there's Shane McMahon, a young Shane McMahon. Vince's son, if you don't know. But yeah, at this particular time, like I said, I was behind Hogan. But right now, as a 46-year-old, I don't agree with him going out after saying, you know, Hogan had lust in his eyes and all that, because he didn't. But yeah, and the show ends. Hogan's still trying to find Savage.
We don't know what's going to happen next.
And that's what set up, and that's the end of the show, folks. But that is what set up WrestleMania 5.
Right. This is WrestleMania 3 that we just watched.
No, the main event. It's the second main event.
Oh, okay. The second main event. And when did the second WrestleMania happen?
That happened in 86.
And that set up the fifth. No, I'm confused. When you start talking about numbers, I get very confused. So I don't need to understand that, actually. So let's just strike all those questions.
Okay. I'm the wrestling fan here, folks. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, that was the main event 2 where the Mega Powers exploded. And like I said, the reason to watch that, if you are a fan of pro wrestling history, is that episode was really the birth of television wrestling as we see it today. And I think in a lot of ways, it made wrestling better because it gave them more options to tell stories. Now, this episode 2 did show with Akeem and with the whole slave angle that wrestling doesn't have the best history when it comes to, you know, being correct in things, you know? Mm-hmm. But that's why times have changed. I mean, we're talking about something that happened in 1989, so I can call it wrong, but, you know, it's like not something I would want to see today, but it happened. And
you know, what's interesting, too, is that a lot of these people are still around, right? A lot of these audience members who totally bought into this, all of this bullshit that we've been talking about, the racial, the gender, the domestic assault, like these things that are happening. We grew up with seeing that on TV and thinking that was normal. And so I think this explains a lot of the resistance to trying to understand what BIPOC communities have experienced as a result of these things. Like, you can really see the connection, I think, between dehumanizing people in an entertainment context and then having them dehumanized as in all other contexts.
yeah, I mean, because I forgot which episode of Tim's Tremendous Tapes, but, you know, I thought about someone like the Iron Sheik. You know, his character was an evil Iranian at the height of the Iranian crisis, you know, when the Ayatollah Khomeini first came into power. And Iron Sheik is revered today, but at the time, people took their hatred of Iran and placed it onto him. And in some ways, you know, he did have to battle with fans that didn't realize it was just a story.
Yeah.
You know, because like as a kid, I had, you know, my father, for instance, was, you know that stuff's fake, right? So I knew pretty early on that, you know, it was, you know, a performance more than anything. But in a lot of ways, knowing at that particular time that wrestling was a performance and not an actual sport was like people in the 50s that knew that cigarettes were bad for you, even though the cigarette companies didn't come out and, you know, say that themselves with, you know, Surgeon General's warnings or anything like that.
Right.
But anyway, enough of us rambling, right?
Enough of us rambling. Let's move along with life, having enjoyed the entertainment that is wrestling.
Indeed. So thank you all for listening to another episode of Friends Talking Nerdy. Next week, we will be back at this same Friends Talking Nerdy time, same Friends Talking Nerdy channel, giving you some more of our wonderful dialogue. And we'll see what we talk about next week. Also, every Thursday on Spotify, check out Tim's Tremendous Tapes. I don't know what I'm going to listen to next week. This episode this week is the metal episode, but next week I'll probably go back to maybe picking a time and just picking some albums from that year.
Sounds great. I can't wait to hear the next episode of Tim's Tremendous Tapes.
All right. So remember to check that out. And each Saturday in this podcast space, we'll have something to entertain your ear holes. Until we meet again, we bid you adieu.
Yes, I do to you.
Oh, yeah.
Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy on iTunes, the Google Play Music Store, as well as Spotify. Remember to support Friends Talking Nerdy on Patreon. Goodbye, darling.